Money. We usually don't think of money as technology, but it is. This here is a great piece of technology. Help us solve many problems, like how to make transactions smooth, how to communicate price, how to store value. But as you know, this is just a piece of paper, some ink on it, some bacteria, nothing of value really. Maybe some cocaine, that's it. So for this here technology to work, we need one more thing. You need to believe that it works. You need to trust the one who gave you this. In this case here, it's the United States of America. Do you trust them? I'm just asking. I have another one here just to give you an example. In this case, it's me. It's an IOU. Which one would you prefer? Okay, I guess most of you don't know me, so you prefer this one over this one, fair enough. But what if I was your brother, or Bill Gates, or what if this was a currency in trouble? The ones in charge were just printing more and more, so inflation was skyrocketing, and your savings were worth less and worth less until worthless. See my point? Nowadays, of course, we don't need these at all anymore. It's all digital. But we still need trust. Need to trust anything behind whatever is digital. The payment service, the app, the bank. Now, what if the next generation, the digital generation, the ones who will spend most of their lives without ever using something weird as paper money, what if they came up with a new alternative model for how to establish trust as well? New technology based on decentralization rather than hierarchy and authority. Just like the internet, but for money or value. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? They already did. Bitcoin was born 11 years ago. But okay, so far it's fair to say that we as society, we haven't agreed on how to trust in something weird like Bitcoin. Most people think of it as a shady thing, maybe even criminal. But what if? I came to think about this after a discussion I had with my son, Simon. He came home from university to start his summer holiday. And we had this lovely evening, you know, the family was gathered, we sat down, it was an evening in June, beautiful weather, so we was barbecuing, you know. Me and my wife, we were talking to Simon about his plans for the summer. What are you going to do this summer? And he told us he had, you know, loads of plans. They were going, him and some friends, to road tripping in Norway to see the fjords and all. They were going on a scuba diving exercise in France. Of course, music festivals, rock festivals, you know, stuff like that. So after a while, I had to stop him and say, hey, Simon, you know, when your mother and I ask you about your summer plans, we want to hear about work. What work are you going to do this summer? And then keep in mind now, my son, he's in this Generation Z. They don't always think like I do, at least. So he said something like this. He said, no, you see, Dad, you know, I value my time so much, so I decided I'm not going to sell it this summer. I'm not going to work. And of course, I mean, that gets you sort of worried, what kind of values and everything. So then the discussion sort of changed. So not anymore focused on the what, but the how are you going to pay for this? And then he just said, chill, you guys don't have to worry about me. I have some Bitcoin. So what follows now is the kind of discussion you have, or rather an argument, between two generations where no one is actually listening. Both are just trying to explain why the other one doesn't understand anything. Have you been through one of those? So I could hear myself talk about risk. You know, this is new technology, this cryptocurrency thing. It's very dangerous, very volatile. You could lose it all, you know. Be careful of this. And he didn't take any of it. He was pushing back hard. He said, what about you, Dad? You believe, truly, you believe you will ever get your money for retirement? I mean, you believe in bankers? Few guys in charge of a hierarchy, you know, on top of the world. They, you know, do whatever they want. They open laundromats in the Baltic states if they feel for it. You trust them? So here I was, being pushed into a corner. I felt like 100 years old, and so I had to position myself. So I told him, I said, you know what, Simon, I have some cryptocurrency myself. Because I remember a couple of years back, I was about to talk to bankers, do a seminar on the future of finance, and I was in this hotel room to do some research. So I bought something called Ether. I don't know if you're into this, but or want to admit, but I bought something called Ether. And when I told Simon, I could see he was immediately impressed. He was like, "Wow, Daddy, you bought Ether early? Did you check your wallet? Do you know your status?" And I was like, "No, it's not like a big thing. I just spent like 10 euros, And he said, "Sure, but it's up like 1,000 times." And I said, 1,000 times? And then I sort of forgot about his summer, and I was all in for my money. So I went for my computer, and I started to do some digging, and I found this file in the computer. It was called Ethereum Wallet, and I was sort of didn't get any further. I didn't even understand anything of what I'd been doing a year or two earlier. So here I am. Now I have to go to my son for advice. He's the one who studies computer science. So I showed him, this is where I ended up. I can't, solve this puzzle here. Can you help me? And he said, "Sure, I'll help you if I get half." And to me, this was kind of provocative. I was born and raised in a time when the reward, the salary you get, will somehow be correlated to how hard a task is, how long time it takes, or something like that. And this sounded ridiculously easy. But I also realized he's right. Half of something will always, of course, be better than all of nothing. So he went to work. He spent maybe half an hour doing this, and then he was done. He had transformed my 10 euros into almost 10,000. So it turned out Simon was right all the time. He did not have to work this summer. Now, the point I'm trying to make here, and the reason I'm telling you this story, it's not that you don't need to worry about the future, you don't even need to work, just go all in on cryptocurrency. That's not the idea the idea that I want to share with you today, that I've been thinking a lot about, is that maybe the way we establish trust will change just as much as technology is changing. What if trust, this foundation for interaction, collaboration, civilization, would be something completely different than today? Maybe even something that doesn't depend on human interaction. What if trust in another human being is way too risky, way too primitive? So first of all, let's agree that trust is a moving concept. Throughout thousands of years, we as human beings, we have trusted in many different things, believed many different sort of things to be true. So we can go back to money to make just the case obvious. For thousands of years, we have traded with, trusted in feathers, pearls, seashells, precious metals. And now in the last century, we have trusted in paper money, fiat currency, money without any intrinsic value, backed by nothing but promises by governments and banks. And then 11 years ago, when we had this financial crisis, a trust crisis, then Bitcoin was born. Just a new way, a new technology based on mathematics and decentralization. Eventually, of course, all money will be digital, but now we have this fork in the road. Government money versus people money. What if the separation of money and state is here? Just like the unthinkable separation of church and state 200 years ago. Maybe we're in for a new era of enlightenment, where we don't need to build trust in human beings. We talk about new technology like artificial intelligence, robots and stuff. It's often something that we think of as scary stuff. What if it's the opposite? What if this is just a great opportunity? What if all of today's problems, like inequality, unsustainable resource use, pollution, migration, what if all of these problems are just trust problems? A result of how we are limited to build trust based on hierarchy, leaders, corporations, nations. So what if this is our enlightenment and Bitcoin is just one example? We can have another one. Let's think of something concrete, artificial intelligence, but what? Like a self-driving car. Everybody heard about the self-driving cars. Can we really trust in a car without a driver? Sounds scary, doesn't it? What if it's the opposite? I truly believe that you will have to tell your grandchildren stories about this. They will come home one day and say, Grandma, Grandma, we were talking about the old days in school today. Did you attend something called driving school? What was a red light? And you will be like, yeah, that's funny, you know, when you mention it. It was like you say it was. It was a red light. You know, you had to stop and wait. I could be sitting there like an evening, lovely evening today, like a Saturday evening, 2 minutes all by myself, just sitting there, you know. I even had a fossil fuel engine running, polluting the air while I was going nowhere, you know. It was back in the days. It was very primitive. We had white lanes in the streets. We had speed limit signs. You see, I was trusted to drive the car. It was crazy, you know. Millions of people died each year, and, you know. It was back in the days. The Industrial Revolution was all about automation of power, energy, hydraulics, electricity, steam engines. And we have talked about that now for hundreds of years, how to automate muscle work. And if the internet was the last big innovation of the industrial era to disrupt all industries, so everybody eventually will have to start to feel this new era, and then it's fair to assume that artificial intelligence might very well be the first big innovation of the next era. Artificial, it literally means that this is intelligence not produced by nature, it's built by us. So we are building intelligence. And if we are building intelligence, then of course we will be able to build more intelligence than there is human intelligence. So eventually, human intelligence will be a tiny portion of total intelligence. Human intelligence, a tiny portion of total intelligence. What does that mean? No one knows. There is not a single AI scientist or tech expert in the world who can tell you what that means, because we have never been in a situation like that before. I mean, the reason we are this superior species on this planet is because we outsmarted all the others. And not only did we outsmart all the others, but our own intelligence evolved as well. Remember what I said? Trust is a moving concept. I was reminding you about the 18th century era of enlightenment. We had revolutionary ideas, weird ideas like skepticism, science, individualism. That's just 200 years ago. Again, trust is a moving concept. But can we really trust in something like artificial intelligence? Again, what if the question we should ask ourselves in the beginning of this new era is if we can trust in human intelligence? I mean, can we trust in a human driver? Can we trust in a banker? And by the way, don't ask them. Never ask the experts. They always have too much to lose. Asking a banker about Bitcoin is like asking a dictator about democracy. Talking about democracy, how do we secure a free and open society? It's a valid question everywhere these days. So, in this age of trust in institutions, corporations, big media, it's fair to say that we are experiencing a new era of skepticism, and everything we believe to be true is about to change. This is not my opinion. There is this company called Edelman. They study trust around the world, and we in the Western, in the democratized world, we are in this downtrend since 20 years back, losing trust and faith. So what if we not only need to ask if we can trust in legislators and policymakers, but truly, can we trust in politicians? And I don't mean any specific politician, I mean politicians as a concept. What if representative democracy is doomed to fail because of the simple fact that it boils down to representatives? So we have to build trust in individuals. And now don't get me wrong, I'm not standing here arguing against democracy. I'm just saying that maybe we cannot build it on trust in individuals. There is no individual that can solve inequality. There is no nation that can solve the climate crisis. There is not one that can be trusted to be in charge, responsible for amazing technologies like artificial intelligence. Maybe all of today's problems are trust problems. So what we need to do is to shift away our attention for how to transform away from trust in ministers, presidents, executives, and create new models, much stronger models, models that are created to withstand the corruption of self-interest. Maybe it's inevitable. Competition used to be about access. Anybody who have access to advanced technology have an advantage. And when everybody have access to advanced technology, then competition changes to trust. So now we will start to focus on trust. How to create new disruptive models based on how to create trust. I don't know, maybe I will be comfortable asleep in the backseat of my car, no driver. Maybe my son is right to trust Bitcoin over any state currency. But what I do know is that we need to create global, borderless trust networks, built not only to protect us from criminals and terrorist individuals, but from all simple human features like fear, anger, greed. But is it possible for us to trust in a network, as in all of us, to rule the world? I know it sounds weird here today, but again, you know that the change ahead of us will be much greater than the change we have been through. And maybe you just need to think of it as money. It might work, but only if you believe it works. Thank you.